What if Naruto in Highschool DXD is immortal shinobi? Part 4. Water pouring from the shower down, two naked figures standing below, their arms wrapped around each other's body, their lips met in a passionate kiss. There was absolutely no space between their bodies as the two were trying to get close to each other as they could. Nothing like a shower in the morning, Naruto said as he managed to separate from Graphia. Those lips were too good to part away. What about me? Graphia whispered, closing the gap between their face so their lips could slightly touch each other. Better, their mouth opened and their tongue wrapped around each other once again. This time, Naruto's right hand no longer stayed on her hip but moved to the underneath of her tit, kneading the heavy orb of flesh in his palm while his other hand found its way to her ass. With a light tug from Naruto, Graphia's whole body was lifted off the ground and the blonde moved his lover to the wall, gently pushing her against the hard surface to keep her at the place she wanted. Ready for round 2? She asked. Her hands already got to his hard member and moved it to her nether lip. She teasingly moved his manhood up and down against the entrance of her pussy. Naruto answered her with a smirk and thrust his hip up, and to Graphia just like how he did this morning and every time they spent their time together, his big member soon all the way in and the tip reached the farthest part, kissing the entrance of her womb rather roughly. Both moaned out as Graphia's wall tightened around his thick member. Then suddenly, Ni-sama, our house, the door to the bathroom was forced open and Asia came running inside with a panic expression on her face. Until she saw what was happening, her expression completely changed. Naruto and Graphia's instantly turned their head to her with their eyes wide in shock. Naruto's mouth nearly dropped to the ground in shock at the awkward situation. There standing the girl he considered his little sister, and in his arm, impossibly close to him, was Graphia with his hand on her ass and breast, not to mention that his soldier was staying inside of her body and refusing the option of leaving the place. But the situation didn't allow him much option and he got no choice but pulled out of Graphia, at the result making her body fell to the ground much to her surprise. Naruto grabbed a towel and tried to wrap it around his waist but failed. Groaning, the blonde threw the towel to the ground rather angrily. It wasn't like Asia didn't see anything yet. Look, Asia, he held up both of his hands, trying to sound as convinced as possible. It is not what it looks like. Graphia pouted rather angrily. This clearly reminded her about the old day when Shana being the overprotective girlfriend. But at least Shana was a full-grown woman and Naruto at that time was also in love with her. Her mistress also used her ruin the extinct to force them to separate. This was a full blow to her pride. Asia, with her innocent mind, couldn't process what Naruto and that beautiful silver-haired lady were doing, only knowing the fact that they were bathing together, naked under the shower. Moo! I won't lose, she cried. Tears swelled up at the corners of her eyes. I will get naked too, and she began to strip herself off her pajama. Hey, what are you thinking you're doing? He was about to step out to stop her but stopped when suddenly Graphia's hand shot up and grabbed a certain limb of his body. We're not done yet, Naruto-sama. With that, she rose herself up and opened her mouth as wide as she could. Before he could stop her, Graphia swallowed him down in one gulp. Line break. Graphia, you seriously should quit being Shana's personally slave and become my wife already. Naruto said between chews, happily eating the incredible delicious breakfast Graphia made for him and Asia. I'm not sure about that, Naruto-sama, Graphia said as she put down more and more plates filled with foods on the table, her cheeks dusted pink. She then turned to Asia. What about you, Asia-san? Are those good enough for you or you prefer the flavor of your home country? She asked politely. It's good, Asia moaned out, holding the bowl in her hand and a pair of chopsticks on another. It is so delicious. I will take that as the compliment. Graphia smiled and got to make another one. She knew more than anyone did how much Naruto could eat in a meal, so she would make sure he get a perfect and healthy breakfast before getting to school. After the mayhem of his home stopped, Naruto and Asia finally got a good look of his new house, and to say he was impressed by what magic could do in just one single night was an understatement. Not shocked, but impressed. He was a wealthy author. With how successful a volume of Ica Ica Paradise was sold, Naruto could live in a life one could call the life of a king. But he knew he should never draw any unnecessary attention from the outside world, so all of his money was kept safely in his trusted safe all around the world. His house from a 2-story house had become a 7-story house, with the entire front yard and area around his house expanded ridiculously to create a massive garden. Gardeners, who Graphia told him was completely human, was working below and made sure the garden would always stay at the best shape. He even saw some statues of fox made of leaves at the front yard and around the place, a lake at the back that had plenty of fishes and even a small forest. Calling the whole place huge would be a huge understatement. The first floor included a massive hall with marble floor, and the stair led to the second floor. On its left was a Victorian-styled guest rooms with luxurious, elegant furniture, marble floor and a crystal ceiling light. There was a living room on the left with a fireplace, bookshelves and a liquor cabinet. At the right side of the hall was a Japanese-styled room and a bathroom big enough for a whole football team to bath together inside. The second floor was his room and Asia's room, right next to each other. There were 6 spares rooms at this floor and 1 bathroom at the end of the hallway. The kitchen was at this floor and so did the dining room, where Naruto was having his breakfast. The 3rd, 4th and 5th floor of his house were currently unused with plenty of spare rooms. The 3rd floor did have a rather big library and a study room, with a storeroom right next to it. There was only 1 room at the 6th floor and it was rather big, so Naruto moved up almost everything he saw fit inside the storage room to make it big and even more elegant than the 1st floor guest room with the help of Graphia. It wasn't like he going to need this room for anything, but taking a nice nap on a couch like this with the surrounding light, that wasn't something he could miss. His house also now came with 3 basements, only the first 2 were usable. At the first basement, there were a movie theater for at least 40 people, training rooms which Graphia said was made personalized for him as it could handle his stronger attacks at his best stage, but she did warn him about not to try the strongest attacks there. There were also changing rooms and a large indoor bath that has a refrigerator filled with 3 different flavors of milk. Naruto tried all of it this morning. There was a hidden room and nothing was there. The second hidden room also contained an assortment of baths of various sizes, noticeably larger than the first and decorated gorgeously with ornate patterns, tropical plants and fox statues pouring water into the bath with the Greenery symbol on their back. 3rd basement floor was a mostly vacant floor that was generally used for storage. 2 elevators connected all floors and a special room at each floor that contained the special magic circle used for teleportation. Of course, to make such miracle happen, all the neighbors around Naruto's house had to mysteriously disappear, which Graphia told him not to worry about it. Naruto-sama, would you like some more bacon egg? Graphia asked, holding the pan with 3 well-cooked eggs inside. Of course Graphia, Naruto smiled and the maid put the eggs into his dishes for him. Before she could return to the kitchen, Naruto grabbed her arms and pulled her toward him. The maid was surprised by this but got even surprised when she found Naruto's lips on her. Thanks, he smiled at her. It's my pleasure, Naruto-sama, she replied with her own beautiful smile. After finishing lunch, the 2 geared up and got ready for school. Graphia still couldn't abandon her duty at the maid of Shana Lucifer, but she did promise to pay him another visit at night. Here, Graphia said as she rose up and fixed Naruto's collar for him. There, she smiled, putting her hand on his chest, looking up at him. Like I said Graphia, he said softly, there were no playfulness in his tone, you should seriously quit being Shana's maid and become my wife. Naruto-sama, is that a proposal? She asked quietly. Kind of. You know, with how much happened in my life, I would love to have someone to settle down with, he smiled, grabbing her hand into his much bigger one. You don't have to agree now, but you can come here every night. A place like this seriously needs someone like you, you know. I will, Naruto-sama. She tiptoed over and kissed him on his lips. I will. There was no word that could describe the happiness she was feeling. Even though he loved her just as much as he loved Shana, Naruto only said those words to her mistress, meaning inside of his heart Shana was someone more important, more precious than the silver-haired Lucifuge. See you later, Fia-chan. Naruto smiled and left the house with Asia. Line break. When break time came, Naruto headed to the Occult Research Club's clubroom with his hands in his pockets, Asia already there first since she wanted to practice tea making with Akano, so he was walking toward the place alone. A few minutes ago, Shana gave him a call and told him about Rias, who had received a request from the 2 exorcists. What more? They also came to Issai's home last night and one of them was Issai's childhood friend, the same one the club saw in his album. The exorcists wanted to meet with the devil who owns this territory, so Rias and Sona would be the one to meet them, along with everyone on the Occult Research Club. The meeting must started a few minutes ago, but Naruto prefers staying at his usual spot to enjoy Graphia's handmade bento for him. Oni-sama, opening the door, Naruto stepped in and was greeted by Asia. Everyone was there and from what he saw, the exorcists were here as well. The first one was a young woman with chin-length blue hair with a green fringe on the right side, and she had brown eyes. She was wearing a church battle suit, which consisted of a black, skin-tight, short-sleeved unitard with pauldrons, matching fingerless gloves that extended to her biceps, and thigh-high boots, all of which were adorned with straps. She also wore a crucifix around her neck. The second guest was also a young woman with long, light brown hair with violet eyes. Her hair was tied into twin side ponytails, each held with a blue scrunchies. She also wore the standard church battle attire, same as the blue hair girl but with some difference here and there. There were two objects wrapped in white clothes laid against the couch beside them. He could feel very pure energy coming from them. "Hey Asia-chan," he patted her head. "Hey guys," Naruto greeted the rest of the group, patting Rias on her shoulder gently. "Hello Rias-chan." He could see that Kiba wasn't happy at the appearance of two exorcists, especially those two objects they were keeping, so his only guess was that they were holy swords. "Good morning Naruto-kun," the girl smiled at him before returning her attention to the two girls. "This is Xenavia and Irina Shido." Naruto gave them a nod for greeting. "Can I sit here?" he asked, pointing at the spot next to Rias. She nodded. Is he human?" Xenavia asked Rias before turning to Irina. "I think this is the one the church had been talking about." "The shinobi," Irina nodded her head, her face showing a little nervousness. "I see that the information had been leaked out," Naruto said uncaringly. "The dream memory last night showed that all three Bible factions knew about his existence because he saved Shana, not to mention he was a good friend with the former leader of the Yukai faction. Heck, maybe the whole world know about me now," he said sarcastically. "The people at the church are very wary of you Naruto Uzumaki," Xenavia said emotionlessly, "but because you're a human I request you keep your opinion down in this matter." "How da?" Naruto put his hand on Ria's shoulder, stopping her. "Don't worry Rias, they're right," he smiled at her before putting both of his hands behind his head. "You guys, go on, continue whatever you were saying before I was here." Xenavia gave a nod of gratitude before clearing her throat. Recently the holy swords Excaliburs that were kept by the Catholic Church headquarters Vatican, Protestant Church, and Eastern Orthodox Church were stolen. Excalibur itself doesn't exist. Rias said like it was something true, a fact. "I'm sorry. One of my servants recently became a devil, so can we continue this conversation while explaining about Excalibur?" She motioned her head to Issei, who was having a look of confusion on his face. "Aiz-kun, Excalibur broke in the war a long time ago," Irina said while looking at Issei. "Can I ask why it was broken?" The new history book still hadn't been published yet, so this was a great opportunity to recall memories. Naruto quickly took it, even if it was the simplest kind of questions about the past. "You broke it, excuse me?" The entire occult research club gasped in shock, and Naruto was no better. His face was the combination of various kind of expressions, like a forced smile, a wary smile, a arrogant smirk, a disbelief face. Broke the infamous Sword of Merlin. It was recorded in one and only history book at Catholic Church headquarters Vatican's library, the book every holy sword wielders have to read before touching the point of maturing. No one believed it until, well, your existence was confirmed by our reliable sources, Xenavia said. "Now it looks like this." Xenavia, the girl with blue hair and green mesh, got her weapon and revealed it to everyone. What appeared was a blue long sword that ends with 3 points with a cross in the pommel, a long grip and an axe-like guard. "This is Excalibur." The moment the younger devils looked at it, they shuddered. The energy coming from the holy sword was indeed very poisonous for the devils, but because Naruto was a human, it didn't have much effect on him. The shinobi broke Excalibur into pieces during the war a long time ago. The fragments were collected and turned into a new form by alchemy. It was made into 7 swords. This is one of them. 7 swords, sound familiar to you? Kurama asked, and Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. The Excalibur I hold is Excalibur Destruction. It's one of the 7 holy swords that were created. The Catholic Church is in control of it, Xenavia said with a hint of pride in her voice. She took the cloth and wrapped it back around Excalibur Destruction. Irina then wrapped her clothed sword, but to his surprise, the rope changed its shape and turned into a katana. Interesting, Naruto mused. Each sword had different ability. Mine is Excalibur Mimic. I can change its shape into anything I want, so it's really useful for carrying around. Just like this, each Excalibur has its unique ability. This one is in the possession of the Protestant Church. She said it with pride. Irina, There's no reason to tell these devils the ability of Excalibur, is there? Zenivia. Even if they are devils, we still have to form a trustworthy relationship with them in this situation. Also, even if my sword's ability is revealed, I won't fall behind all the devils here. She then turned at Naruto. Well, except for him, she whispered. I'm still right here, Naruto said aloud. So what does the stolen Excaliburs have to do with this country located in the east of the world? Rias continued. The Catholic Church was in possession of 2 Excaliburs including mine. The Protestant Church also had 2. Also in the Eastern Orthodox Church there were 2 as well. The last one went missing in the previous war between God, devils, and fallen angels. 1 Excalibur was stolen from each church. The ones that stole them escaped to Japan, and brought them to this town. It looks like my territory is full of incidents. So who stole the Excaliburs? Rias asked with a frown. Naruto sighed. What he thought a few days ago had become the truth. The ones that stole them were the Grigori. Ria's eyes widened slightly. The fallen angel, right? Naruto asked. The holy swords were taken by the fallen angel organization. Zenivia nodded her head at his question. It's not a matter of mistake. But certainly it would be the fallen angels when it comes to stealing them. For the devils working at the top, holy swords does not give them much interest. We know the main culprit who stole the Excaliburs, one of the leaders of Grigori, Kokobile. Sound like cocaine to me, Naruto muttered before seeing everyone's eyes were on him. What? It was just a way of comparing. Kokobile, one of the leaders of the fallen angels that survived the previous wars since ancient times. I never expected to hear the name of the one that appears in the Bible. Rias also smirked at the name. We sent priests and exorcists to this town secretly, but they kept getting killed. Zenivia said with a sad face, but instantly returned to her normal calm and emotionless one. Our request, no. Our order is to not to have any devils intrude in the battle between us and the fallen angels for the Excalibur. In other words, we came here to tell you not to interfere with this incident. Rias's eyes changed after hearing the way Zenivia talked. Such manner behind that speech of you, Zenivia-san. Is it restraint? Are you thinking that we might collaborate with those fallen angels? Perhaps that we might team up with them to do something about Excalibur? The headquarters think that it might not be impossible. Rias was quite angry. An enemy comes all the way to her territory, then told her not to be involved and not to butt in. Of course, Rias's pride as a high-class devil wouldn't allow her to keep quiet about it. The higher-ups don't trust devils and fallen angels. We were ordered as if the holy swords are taken away from God's side, then the devils would also be happy, right? The fallen angels would also profit from it. For those reasons alone, it won't be weird for them to form an alliance. That's why we are giving you a warning. If you form an alliance with the fallen angel Kokobile, then we will eliminate you all. Even if you're the little sister of Maru, by our boss. If you know that I am the sister of Amaru, then it means that you have lots of connections with the higher-ups in the church. Then I will say it. We will not form an alliance with the fallen angels. Never, in the name of the Gremori house. I will not do something that would tarnish the name of our Maru. Rias said seriously. The discussion had become a contentious situation for both sides. However, Zenivia just laughed at her. Phew, hearing that is good enough. I had to warn you just in case that Kokobile is hiding himself in this town along with the 3 Excaliburs. If something were to happen, I would be the one to be hated by the bunch in the church headquarters. Well, we won't ask for cooperation. If you were to form an alliance with God's side temporarily, then it would affect the balance of the 3 factions. Especially if it's the little sister of Amaru. Where is the person the Orthodox Church dispatched? After taking a deep breath, Ria's expression became softened. They have that person put on hold for this case. They are planning to protect the last Excalibur if Irina and I fail. Zenivia answered Rias's question. So it's just the 2 of you. You are going to retrieve the Excaliburs from the leader of the fallen angel with just the 2 of you. How reckless. No real information about their leader other than what came from a book, no knowledge about their number. You will still go even if you knew that you could die during this mission? Naruto asked. Yes, Irina said it with a straight face. I have the same view as Irina, but if it's possible I don't want to die. Zenivia nodded her head. You came here to Japan prepared to die. The belief in your teaching is extreme like always. Rias chuckled at the two girls. She didn't know what they had been taught, but it always brought amazement to her each time she met an exorcist from the church. Don't talk ill of our beliefs, Rias Gremory. Right. Zenobia. Right. Also, the church decided that it would be better to eliminate all of the Excaliburs rather than letting them get used by the fallen angels. Our minimum objective is to get the Excaliburs away from the fallen angels. To accomplish that, it's okay for us to die. The only way to fight against the Excalibur. Is it possible with only the two of you? Well, we won't die in vain. Naruto sighed longingly at the fearlessness in their voice. They reminded him of his old self. Blindly charged into a battle without knowing the consequence, without caring about himself. You seem confident. Do you have a secret weapon? Rias asked. These girls were ticking her off more and more with each speech. Maybe. I will leave it to your imagination. After that, the two of them just stared at each other and the conversation stopped. Irina and Zenobia looked at each other and stood up. Then we will take our leave now. Let's go, Irina. So you won't drink your tea? I can prepare a snack for you. Rias smiled at them. I don't need it. Zenobia declined. I'm sorry. See you. Irina also apologized with her hand. Naruto yawned. He really needed a nice nap right now. Maybe chit-chatting with Shana or Graphia would be the better idea. He was about to pull out his phone then suddenly, when I saw you in Highschool Isai's house, I thought that maybe it was you. Are you the witch, Asia Argento? I never expected to meet you in a place like this. Naruto's eyes suddenly turned cold and he closed his phone, very silently. Asia's body shook after she was called witch. Irina seemed like she noticed as well and stared at Asia. Are you the rumored witch? The former holy maiden. You are said to have the power that can also heal devils and fallen angels, right? I heard that you were sent somewhere in Japan after getting exiled, but I never thought you became a devil. Asia didn't know how to react to Irina and Zenobia. It's okay. I won't tell the higher-ups what I saw here, so rest assured. People who were around the Holy Maiden Asia will also get shocked as well. Asia made a perplexed expression at Irina's words. But to become a devil, the one who was called a Holy Maiden, you fell to the lowest place you could. Do you still believe in our God? Zenobia, there's no way that she, who became a devil, still believes in God. She do. Irina said it with an amazed face. No. I can smell that belief from her. It might be an abstract way of saying it. But I'm sensitive to these things. There are people who betray the teachings and still have guilt within them because they couldn't forget the teachings. I can feel something similar coming from her. Zenobia said it with sharp eyes and Irina stared at Asia even more with interest than before. Is that true, Asia-san? You still believe in God even if you have turned into a devil? I just can't put it aside. I believed in it for my whole life, Asia replied to that question with a sad expression. Hearing that, Zenobia took her sword out from the cloth and pointed it at Asia. The cell phone in Naruto's hand cracked and his eyes flared red. Is that so? Then we should cut you down this instant. If it's now, I can cut you in the name of God. Even if you have sin, our God will But she wasn't even got the chance to finish that sentence. Because she was slammed right into the wall by a smirking Naruto, with such force that the form spider web crater around her. Zenobia, Irina shouted and grabbed her sword and tried to pierce Naruto's heart with it. Unfortunately for Irina, there was a faster swordsman than her in this room and he instantly appeared behind Naruto, using a sword he created through his sacred gear to block Excalibur. Did you just threaten my sister? Naruto asked coldly, his eyes shadowed by his bangs. You say you will cut her in the name of God. How about I cut you in the dead body of his? He grabbed Zenobia's Excalibur in one hand and welded it as if it was nothing. How about I cut you down with your own sword, little girl? His hands tightened around Zenobia's throat, choking her. The blue-haired exorcist desperately tried to claw Naruto's hand in order to make him release her. Zenobia, Irina cried out in horror when Zenobia's struggle became weak, her body limping and her eyes rolled into the back of her head. All the while, Naruto only smirked at her. Don't Onii-sama. Asia cried out and ran at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. His smirk instantly disappeared and Naruto's eyes returned to its normal cerulean blue eyes. His hand loosened around Zenobia's throat and let her fall down to the ground. The young woman gasped for air, her hands on her chest, and was still in her own state of shock for the near-death situation. Asia, he looked at the young blonde, his expression softened. Please, let's them go, she looked up at him with tearful eyes. Naruto sighed, wrapping his arms around Asia and let her cry into his chest. He shouldn't lost his cool head like that. Excalibur, the sword he broke during the war and now made into 7 different Excaliburs. Who could have thought it could bring him so much trouble with just its appearance? Now fallen angels were running around the town carrying the rest of the legendary swords with them with evil intention, more or less directly threatening Rias and everyone's life. Not that he didn't believe they couldn't handle the situation if it got worse, but Shana asked him to take care of them and he would not let anyone hurt Rias and her peerage, not even the leader of Fallen Angel. Naruto didn't think much about how he reacted when they threatened Asia's life, because he would do whatever it takes to protect the people he cares about, even the simplest life threat would cause them their life. If not for Asia, he would have his hand tainted with blood once again. She was really something else, such a kind and pure heart. He and Rias let the Excalibur duo left peacefully after that, since the two were still a little shaking because of the near-death situation with Naruto. Naruto kind of felt bad for them, running into a very dangerous mission without so much of an information about their enemies and their life could possibly taken away from them any second from now on. Going into a battle with only the belief in the teaching they were taught since the day they were small was stupid. It didn't take an immortal with 1,000 years of experiences to know that. Naruto looked around. He was still learning about the supernatural world, but he could feel multi-signature around the town, and some of them, while hiding better than the other, was incredibly thicker than the rest. Naruto had sent out a few clones around the town. Rias and her peerage were ordered to stay still for now, so he would also stay still and do nothing. However, it didn't hurt if he was a bit more careful. A few more clones could help a lot in information gathering. Stepping into his new house, it took him 5 more minutes to get to the main gate of the mansion. He didn't know who got the idea of making his house this big, but clearly they didn't know that he enjoyed a more quiet life than this. Since Asia was out for tonight, going to Ria's apartment so the older girl could help her study. After putting his bag into his room, Naruto put on his casual clothes and put the notebook for his research into his pocket and teleported away using her ration. He seriously needs to do some more research for his porno novel. Line break. Graphia Lucifuge carefully folded her clothes neatly before putting them orderly into her silver luggage. The beautiful woman was doing so while humming a soft tune, with a very un-Graphia-like smile on her face. As she was the personal maid of Shana and also the queen of Lucifer, Graphia got her own chamber inside Lucifer Castle. However, the silver-haired beauty got her own little house at the city outside, the capital of the underworld Lilith. The maid kept almost all of her belongings there. This morning, when Naruto indirectly proposed to her and asked Graphia if she could move in to live with him from now on, she never felt much joy in her life, even though she managed to keep a straight face at that moment. First come the love, then come the marriage, then. Graphia blushed brightly at the thought of having children with Naruto. Milikas were Shana's joy and happiness, the evidence of the unquestionable love between her and the immortal shinobi. Sometime looking at the mother-son's loving moments together, Graphia couldn't help but wonder what it would feel like to have a child of her own, to raise him with the man she loved. He might not remember anything, but he was the same man that changed her, cared for her and loved her. Opening the last drawers of her table, Graphia made sure not to leave back anything when suddenly, she heard the sound of someone knocking against the door. Graphia turned her head back. It was almost midnight, so someone coming to her house at this timing was very unusual. She closed her eyes and sensed the magical signature outside of her house. Her eyes widened when she recognized Shana's magical signature. Graphia, are you home? Her mistress called out for her loudly with a very strange tone, as if she was currently very drunk. Graphia immediately stood up and casted a few spells on the luggage, making them disappear. She better not let the Crimson Maru know about this, especially when the competition for the #1 spot in Naruto's heart started again. I'm coming, Shana-sama, Graphia replied, after making sure everything was covered. Dusting her clothes, the maid stood up and walked to the door. Shana-sama, she opened it and immediately the smell of alcohol hit her nose. Hey Gray-chan, Shana Lucifer giggled as she stood with her elbow leaned against the door, her eyes half lifted and a half-heart smile on her face. Graphia did not need to see the basket, which was full of bottles of wine and her mistress' red face to know that Shana was drunk, and was here to ask her to drink with her. Shana-sama, are you drunk? Grafia asked calmly. The stern maid's attitude returned to her face as she stared blankly at the red-haired woman standing in front of her house. Please come in before anyone see you in such state. Or, see, mourn Gray-chan, drop that maid act. Shana giggled and stepped into Grafia's house, putting one of her arm on the maid's shoulder and smiled. Your release of your duty, so we're equal here. Shana declared loudly and walked into the house. Why are you here, Shana-sama? Grafia asked as she followed the Crimson Maru, who was also her best friend outside of the duty. What about Milika's-sama? My son can take care of himself for a night, plus Ka-sama was there to visit him, so I got a night off tonight. She walked into Grafia's dining room and sat down on a chair, putting the basket of devil's wine on the table and motioned her hand for Grafia to sit down on the chair next to her. Come and drink with me, Grafia. I don't think it was a good idea, Shana-sama. She drank with Shana plenty of times in the past and it always ended badly for her. Shana could hold her ground against devil's wine, one of the strongest wines in the world, quite well because of her demonic powers nature. However, that also made her wonder just how many bottles of devil's wine she had drunk to get her in this state. Shut up and sit down. We will have a girl night tonight, Gray-chan, Shana said and stood up, pushing Grafia down the chair and pulled out a bottle of wine. Guess I don't have any choice then, Grafia sighed and summoned 2 cups. Learned from her past mistake, Grafia would only drink 2 cups at most. Several hours later Grafia slammed her cup down to the table, completely drunk, and Shana was no better than she was. Her face was red and her eyes half lifted. She lost count of the amount of wine she had drunk after the 10th bottles. Yet, the 2 of them still grabbed their bottle and filled their cup full with the light color liquor. Do you know what this day is, Grafia? Shana asked with both of her arms on the table, running her fingers through the long bangs covered her head. Grafia only shook her head and grabbed her cup, got it emptied in one gulp before offering herself more. This is the day Naruto-kun proposed to me, the Crimson Maru said softly, making Grafia stop drinking. This day, 12 years ago. Grafia nodded her head. I guess, since he is immortal, I was probably not the first woman. Shana sighed, leaned back against her chair, but he acted very clumsy that day. We went on a date. For the first time he asked me to go out with him, not me. We went to the theme park, movie theater, a fancy restaurant, and I let him rest on my lap during lunch break. Shana smiled fondly at the memories while Grafia sat still and listened on. We had so much fun together that day. At the end of the day, he took me to our old training ground, the place he gave me my very first lesson. Shana continued after dinking her cup, letting Grafia fill it up for her. Then he kneeled down in front of me, much to my shock, and took out a box. Inside was the most beautiful ring I had ever seen in my life. I'd never seen you wear a ring before, Shana-sama. Grafia spoke up and was surprised when Shana suddenly laughed loudly. I was so happy that I couldn't control my power, so I destroyed that ring right after he put it on my fingers. Shana's laughter then softened. He brought it with his save-up money, not the money he got from selling his porno novel. He promised me he would bought me another one as soon as he got enough money again. Everything was so perfect to me, to us. Shana then gritted her teeth and said angrily, her magical aura flared dangerously, until that man returned. Shana-sama, Grafia whispered, but suddenly Shana Lucifer's negative mood disappeared, her aura also disappeared. Forget it, Gray-chan. Shana laughed and filled Grafia's cup full again. What matter now is that Naruto-kun returned to me, to all of us. Yes, Shana-sama, Grafia said and gulped down the light color liquor. Line break. Naruto shuddered, as he suddenly felt he just missed something very important. Shaking his head, Naruto stood outside of Ria's apartment and knocked on her door for a few times. It was 3 in the morning and he was here to get Asia. Rias tried to call him all night, yet he forgot to bring his cell phone with him, and was too deep in researching material for his porno novel all over the world, to the point he completely forgot the times. He returned a few minutes ago, and after seeing Ria's text for him, Naruto immediately got to her apartment after calling her beforehand. A few seconds later, he heard the sound of locks being removed before the door was opened. Rias standing there wearing a bathrobe with a rather sleepy expression on her face. Not the best way to greet a visitor at night, Rias-chan, Naruto said in amusement. Hey, Naruto-kun, Rias greeted him sleepily while rubbing her eyes. Did you come to get Asia? She is sleeping inside. No, just let her sleep. I'm here to discuss with you a few things, Naruto said with a shrug. Rias smiled to Naruto, then stepped to the side to open a path for him. Please come in. Thank you Rias-chan. Naruto smiled and walked inside, as Rias then closed the door behind him. Naruto sat down on the couch while Rias went to the kitchen to make him some tea. He could feel Asia's low magical signature at the guest room next to the living room, telling him that she was sleeping peacefully. This was the first time he came to Ria's apartment and could see that it was kind of like her room at the Gremory residence, without the overly expensive stuffs of course. Moment later, Rias returned with a teapot and 2 cups in her hands. Putting them down to the table, she sat down on the chair in front of Naruto and poured some tea into his cup for him. How is Asia doing, Rias-chan? Naruto asked, taking the teacup from Rias. She is getting better in speaking Japanese, Naruto-kun. Rias smiled, her writing is also getting better, a few more days and I'm sure that she won't have any more troubles with Japanese. She is a smart girl. Naruto nodded his head. Anyway, Rias-chan, I came here to talk to you about the 2 exorcists and the missing Excaliburs. See, what do you think about them, Naruto-kun? First, there aren't anything I could do to help those 2, Naruto shook his head. No matter what they did or said to Asia, those 2 were still 2 young women who got a life ahead of them, and Naruto would never let anyone wasting their life so stupid like that. The church did a good job in teaching them about their belief, something ridiculous if you ask me. Naruto took a sip of his tea before continuing. Second, it was about the your peerage. Kiba is being distracted by his hatred toward the Excaliburs, and because of the thieves being fallen angels, I doubt Akano will manage to keep her cool. Naruto looked up from his cup of tea. I guess you already know about Akano and Kiba's background. Rias nodded her head sadly. Naruto did say a few days ago that her sister gave him the documents about her peerage for his training for them, so she wasn't surprised to see him know so much about them. It would be a lie if I say that I am not worried for them, and I got a feeling that the fallen angels will act soon enough, if they're still in my town, that is. Tomorrow is a day off, isn't it? Naruto asked, and Rias nodded her head. Good. Gather everyone at my horse tomorrow morning. I think I will have to speed up the training.